cells or something are pretty cool, right? But they have a bunch of parts, and so we need to know how to make one. And we use the power of Sharpies and scribbling lines to show that. So the first thing is, they need something to hold everything. So we're gonna draw this blob. His name is Bob the Animal Cell, okay? He's pretty cool. He doesn't have a face though. Cells don't have eyes. Now, we need something inside of him that holds all of his stuff, presumably. Like you'd think there'd be water in there, but there is not water, right? There is, in fact, cytoplasm, which is just kind of like goopy stuff, right? We're going to represent it with this cool lavender purple color. Okay, professional artist right here. And goodbye. Now, the next thing we'd probably need is something to support it, because, he's a little blob guy, right? And it's just flopping all over the place, it could fall apart, what if he gets run over by a car, he's just gonna explode. But if we give him some cytoskeleton structured tubular things, some little things like that, these things will help him have structure and things like that. And with these, he'll be able to maintain his shape and form and not collapse in upon itself, which is pretty important. Now, we need something to control everything, right? And so we're gonna do this fancy thing called a nucleus. Yes, now it starts to look like a cell, or a fried egg that is purple for some reason. Now, what does the nucleus do? Well, does some cool stuff. Its main important thing is that it holds the DNA and all the reproductive, like mitosis of thingamajigs. The DNA, yes, that's what's important about it. If it doesn't have DNA, it can't do anything, Its DNA makes it does all its stuff. It's like if you're an office worker, right? We're gonna have, he's got his tie right here, right? We got Larry, the office worker. He's cool, okay? And he's sad because his Mr. Bossman, okay, that's his name, Mr. Bossman. He also has a tie, but his suit is like dark colors because Bossman color suits are dark. And he's like, oh no, my man can't do his work. And so he reaches into his filing cabinet, okay, and he grabs this little nugget of paper, and he gives them the paper, and this paper says, do this, right? So my man, he grabs the paper, and now he is eternally happy, because now he knows what he has to do, and he can go do his stuff. That's pretty much what DNA is. And inside of the nucleus, there is also a nucleolus, which is just the center of the nucleus. It does some cool things, right? We're going to use this fancy blue color this one in. And light blue to color, this isn't really light, but light blue. Now, our next thing, actually, you know what? I'm going to be a legend real quick and label some of these things, right? So we got our cytoskeleton. We have our cell membrane. We have, I don't know if there's a good way to mark this. We're going to say cytoplasm. C is a very fun letter. Have our, we're going to call this the nucleus of the cell. And then long arrow. Nucleolus. That's probably not how you spell it. Now, next, we need some power, right? You can't really do anything without power. If we have our guy, Larry, or whatever I decide to name him over here, right? When he's at his home, he's just vibing over here, okay? This is him in his, pajama hat, right? He's cool, right? He's like, oh my god, I'm tired, okay? These are his fancy PJs. PJ, okay? And he wakes up in the morning and he goes out to his breakfast table, and he lives alone, and he's like, oh, I'm hungry. So goes to cupboard, okay? okay, you know, conveniently located cupboard. And he grabs out this box of, food. Yeah. And he pours the food into his food bowl, okay, and then he takes his lovely, fork, and he consumes the nutrients, and now he has energy. And now he can do all of his stuff that his instructions from his boss told him to, right? So, what are those things called? Well, they're called mitochondria. You know, you hear all about them, you know, they're the powerhouse of the cell, right? He'll live over here. Now, for the sake of I don't have space, we are only going to go with one mitochondria, and it's going to be red, because red. Yeah, with those little anime eye highlights in there. That's pretty cool. Now, we have all this stuff. We're doing good, right? But, you know, you never thought about this, right? There's the DNA, right? You know, the base copies and the chromosomes are inside the DNA. I mean, in the nucleus. Excuse me. There's your little chromosomes. Okay. But it's like, this is really important. If we ever lose this copy of our DNA, we're not going to be able to get it back, you know? So, we're going to have Larry, once again, my man. He's doing his business work, right? He's happy. And he says to himself, man, I have a lot of colleagues at work, right? We're going to say this is colleague 1, colleague 2, colleague 3. Okay? And he needs to give them all some stuff. That's his task. They need to have instructions as well. Well, you see, Larry only has one copy of instructions, right? And so, he says, I'm going to go over to the fax machine, right? And he inserts this paper into the fax machine. The fax machine goes burr, and out comes a bunch of instructions, specifically 3 copies because he has 3 colleagues. Now let's give him his little tie. That's really important. Now, what is this fax machine inside of a fax machine inside of a cell? Well, that's these little guys. There's a bunch of them. These are going to be ribosomes. Okay? These guys, they go around and they do all the work with the DNA and copying it, etc. to make sure that the DNA can be, there's more than one copy and that can be used around the cell by the various organelles and things of that nature. So, next, we also need some other chemicals, you know, just like, you know, in us humans, you know, we're made of cells, obviously. And we need some other nutrients to survive. Now, we need some things called the endoplasmic reticulum, ER. So yes, and these kind of live over here. This is going to be the smooth ER. Why is it smooth? It is. Okay? And no, we'll get to explaining that in a second. So smooth ER, it's cool. Then we have the rough ER. It lives over here. But this one is, why is this one rough, right? That may be your question. Maybe not. Maybe you don't care. Well, we have these things, right? And what are these suspicious orange dots? Orange, yellow, yellow, orange, color of the rainbow dots. Well, those are ribosomes. That's what makes it rough. Ribosomes live on the rough ER. At least some of them. The other ones just kind of do whatever they want in the cytoplasm. You know, they're free individuals. So, what do these things do? Well, they produce proteins. Proteins are also like pseudo-instructions, and they perform a ton of different tasks, you know. They're super, super important, you know. And that's, the DNA kind of tells these rough and smooth ERs what to produce. So, you know, ribosomes and ER. Happy family. Now, Golgi apparatus. It's going to live over here, and it's going to be long and in multiple things like this. And it looks like leaf petals or something. How about this shade of green? Green. Yay. Now, what does this Golgi apparatus do, okay? Well, let's just think for half a second. Well, I'm going to explain it to you. You don't have to think. So, its purpose is to package and store and to get ready for transport these proteins that have been made over here, and just proteins and lipids as well. Lipids are important in general, right? So that's how they get around the cell, you know. They're not gonna like magnetate towards where they need to go, you know. They need transport and they need packaging. The Golgi apparatus is the packager. See, we're gonna have someone different this time, okay? This is, I don't know, what's a cool name? Bean Man, okay? Name's Man, Bean Man, okay? He has a bow tie instead of a tie because he's a cool kid, okay? He's happy. What does he do? He puts things, he takes, let's say, I don't know, what does this company make? He works in an office. He makes tax papers, okay? These are your taxes. And he is delivering them to the people, right? So he has this box over here. He puts the tax papers into the box, right? And he's happy. But now he's sad because he did his job. He has all these tax papers in the box, but they have nowhere to go. How do we solve that problem, right? You know, well, you'd say, if you're transporting to a bunch of people, you know, get your handy dandy little truck here, right? This is a professional truck drawing. Wow. And so now the truck driver can't really see. He takes all the boxes and he puts them inside of the truck, right? Now, Bean Man is happy because somebody fulfilled his life purpose of taking away all these tax papers he put in the box to be delivered to people so they can get angry, right? And not do them. Now, what is this truck in context of a cell? Well, that is called a vacuole or a vesicle. There's multiple things, right? These guys, they're decently sized, right? And what they do is they are basically the transport thingamajigs, you know. It's a truck, right? And what they're gonna do is they're gonna pick up these proteins or other resources or waste materials too, and they're gonna either transport the things around the cell, right? So let's say we have a protein. It went to the Golgi apparatus, it got all packaged. Now it's in the vacuole. Where does it go from the vacuole? I don't know. Somewhere else inside the cell. Now let's say, I don't know, Mr. Mitochondria. He was making his energy, right? And he was like, Mr. Powerhouse 9000, let's draw this pro lightning bolt here, okay? And he was making lots of energy. But in the side process, maybe he made some waste material, right? And we have these waste nuggets. Well, a vacuole is going to come over, and it's going to be this different shade of pink, because I lost my other pink marker. And it's going to say, we don't need that anymore. So it's going to go to the cell wall, and it's going to, like, well, not cell wall, cell membrane, fuse with it, and then eject all the little nuggets outside that we don't want. Now, what if there's little nuggets on the outside, right, that are like good nuggets, you know, and they're too big to just, you know, slip through the cell membrane? Because just quick explanation, the cell membrane is a lipid bilayer. Lipids, molecules, they're small, okay? If you have water can squeeze through there, you know, and there's some other things that'll let through, things like that. But what if, you know, let's say there's like, I don't know, really, this is a chunky nugget, okay? And this is, I don't know, something cool. He's like, I want this, right? The nucleus is like, oh, that's pretty important. So the vacuole comes in, and he's like, fuse. He takes it into him, and then he passes it through the membrane and lets it in. So now it's in the cell. Now we're happy. And so that's pretty much what they do. Next is, let's see, we need lysosomes, okay? These are pretty important, right? And they get to live here. We'll put him here. Quick explanation to the real world. So we're going to have Larry again, right? Larry is, he is very busy. Okay, he's over here. He's got his hands on his long keyboard over here, you know, with its keys and buttons. Sitting at his wonderful desk on his chair, made of his hopes and dreams, okay? Now, he's vibing on a computer, right? You know, he's playing Minecraft or something, you know. And he's just mindlessly doing his things at work. Well, you know, if there was a man, and we're gonna assume this is Mr. Burglar Man, okay, he's got like his ski mask on, right? He's ready to, you know, rob you of all your life's possessions. Okay, he's down here. He's very scary. Okay, he's got his bag full of money. Okay, this looks like a vase. That's okay. And he's gonna go and he's gonna steal this man, Larry, over here. He's gonna steal his poor chair. His very lovely chair. You know, he paid a lot of money for this chair. Let's put some legs on it. See, he even made it so that it wouldn't be like a floor nugget that he just sits on. Now, this is not good. And what do we need for this? We need security, right? We're gonna say, I don't know. This is Requise. Okay, he's a big, strong man. Okay, you know, he's got those muscles. Okay, right. And he says, "Oh no, I'm angry now because there's a burglar trying to steal my friend Larry's chair." And he doesn't like that, you know, he's causing property damage. We don't like property damage, you know, this is a society where we need justice, okay? And so, and now we have Requise over here. Requise is going to be like, no, and he's going to be, I don't know, he's going to use his strunk, and he's just going to yeet this man, you know, straight out the window. You know what I'm saying, you know, all crazy style. You know, there's some broken glass and stuff. You know, he goes flying. He's like, oh my god, what have I done with my life, right? Now, this is, you know, we need this in a cell, right? That's what a lysosome does. So, Mr. Lysosome over here. If we were to say, oh, I don't know, let's say there was an enemy bacteria, right? You know, this is an animal cell. This isn't like a teeny tiny little itsy bitsy cell. We'll get to that in a second. So your little itsy bitsy cell, though, broke into here. And it's going to cause lots of damage. Well, what he's going to do is he's going to say no, and he's going to utterly destroy and wipe this man out of existence. He's not going to be allowed to exist anymore. Got it? So, and also, something important is there is the concept of tumors, right? Uncontrolled cell growth when cells refuse to die. And so, the lysosome, if they are in functioning order, should tell the cell that he is no longer allowed to live, or the nucleus is going to tell the cell that he's no longer allowed to live, and the lysosome is going to go around and just absolutely murder everything inside of it and prevent it from being alive anymore. And this is really important because if you get tumors, that's cancer. Cancer kills. Healthy people get cancer. Sick people get cancer. Cancer's just bad. You don't want it, okay? I hope you know that by now. So, that's pretty much what you need for a cell in order for it to function correctly. Now, what if you're a plant, okay? Now, if you're a plant, you say, oh, well, we don't really, you know, we don't consume these power nuggets, you know, that's not for us, you know, what if we're no longer an animal cell, we're a plant cell, okay? This is, Joe, okay, Joe the plant cell, right? He's not pretty much the same thing, right? Pretty much. The differences between them is now, instead of having, like, a few little vacuoles, they have, like, there's not really space in here. But imagine this vacuole, except it was, like, a really, really chunky, like, bigger than this chunky, okay? And, this vacuole is pretty much just like a storage unit, you know? It does its thing. Chunky vacuole. And it stores water, and mainly, too, because plants, water, very important. And also, it has a few other things. If you know, if you think about it, you know, plants, where they get their energy, they get it from the sun, right? We talked about this. They don't, you know, do none of that kind of stuff, okay? Now, they don't do consuming themselves. Yeah, they consume a few nutrients, but they get most of their energy from the sun being like, hello there, and woo, 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 and shining sun, okay? Now, we don't need no mitochondria anymore. I hope not. And we have this guy instead. He's cool. He's green. You know, this is the guy that makes plants green, okay? is a chloroplast. Now, what does he do? He takes this sun energy from Mr. Sun, okay? And he also takes some water, preferably from over here. You know, you got your cubular water droplet, triangular water droplet, and stuff like that. And he also takes some carbon dioxide, which is going to be this little scary thing, molecule over here, right? And it's going to go in here. And then from there, you go whoop, and you get yourself some sugar. We're going to represent this by a sugar cube. See, this is clearly a sugar cube. I don't know why it's outside the cell. It should be in here. Okay. Now, that's how they make their energy, right? And scratch that, they probably have mitochondria to take this and process it and make their energy, you know? Smart. Now, something else that's important is you may have seen a plant cell. Well, it's not all blobular. Yes, blobular. And it's more like a box, and that's usually how it is. Well, what makes it a box? You know, if it's a blob, you know, it's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be all flippity flop, you know? Except, you know, it still retains structure, you know, with these cytoskeletons. But, you know, it's not per se rigid. Well, that thing that makes it so rigid is this, you know, box-like structure, matter-of-factly, you know. And it is called simply, you know, the cell wall. And it is what makes this is what keeps the structural integrity of the cell, okay? And its main goal is to, you know, protect the cell, you know, give it structure. That's why, you know, if you have like a tree, you know, and you punch it, it's not a whole lot's gonna happen, right? You know, it's a super rigid structure, okay? And that's because, you know, you have your cell walls over here, okay? And yeah, so if you look at a plant under a microscope, let's assume hypothetically, you know, hypothetically speaking, we have, I don't know, this clover, right? It's going to be 3-leafed, okay? Put it under a microscope. This is microscope. Okay. Scope. Whatever. Now, if we take this magnification and we blow it up to a large amount, you'll see that there's like this little, not exactly like this, okay? They're not exact squares. They're a little bit rounded on the edges. But you see this giant grid view almost of these little boxes. Now these boxes are these cells, right? And that's what plant cells are, you know, little boxes. So magical power. And that's why they're so stiff. Because if you look at an animal, right, moving thing, it has to move, right? You know, it can't just stay in one place. But these guys, they you know, they're going to be stationary for the most part, right? They have to be nice and strong and rigid so that, you know, again, you know, this is you, okay? You're just a stick figure, okay? You're not part of the blob gang. And you see Mr. Tree, and he's like, okay? And you're like, well, punch, and now you're sad because your hand is in pain and the tree took no damage because it is very strong and rigid to prevent people from punching it to death, you know? It's just kind of how it works. Anyways, what about, I don't know, let's just talk about for a second here. Little teeny tiny itsy bitsy cells, right, that I was talking about earlier, right? Your bacteria, pretty much. Simple as that. So like if you think about it, you got your single-celled organisms, and then you got your multi-celled organisms. Plant and animal cells, they are eukaryotic, they make up their multicellular organisms, okay? But if you have a single-celled organism, you know, you can't be as complex as this, because, you know, like, I don't know, humans, right? Trillions of cells, right? You got trillions of these little guys. Upon trillions, you're making millions new every day, right? And so, these guys, they're way too complex to just be by themselves, you know what I mean? They wouldn't be able to function, right? It's like if we have, I don't know, we have Larry again, right? But this time, he doesn't have any coworkers, okay? His coworkers don't exist, right? And he's running his business, and he's over here, okay? And he says to himself, you know, I want to be an entrepreneur. You know, I saw this video, and it was like, you know what? Do basic economic stuff, and you can become you become really rich, right? So he's like, entrepreneur. And so he starts up this huge, he takes out like a $10 million loan, puts himself in years of debt. He buys this really, really chunky skyscraper, okay, with lots and lots and lots of windows, okay? And he's doing all his work inside, he's getting some stuff done. But he's not paying off his rent that well, right? He can't do it by himself. And now he's sad because he's broke and he can't pay off his debt. So, what does he have to do? Well, he's got to decide, okay, maybe this isn't the right life. And so he goes and he's like, house, okay? He is now going to become an artist, right? And this is him again, in his art man hat, right? And he's happy now because he can do this as a one-man team. This art is complex, okay? I mean, look at this flower he's drawing right in front of your very eyes, okay? This is like some really advanced kind of stuff, okay? But, it's a lot easier to do this by yourself than it is to run a whole entire chunky skyscraper's worth of office jobs of colleagues that he no longer has, right? So, that's the same thing with here, You can't have all these fancy, schmancy, fun time, magical organelles, right? And so, I'm just going to say bacteria, long, they're usually long. Giant tail, okay? Tail gives them propulsion. And they just kind of, they're really simple. They got their little DNA floating around in the middle, double helix. Got, your ribosomes, I mean, there really ain't much to them. Mitochondria. They're really simple. Also, if you thought, virus, okay? A virus is living, they are not. They are just kind of things. Scary. Anyways, that about does it. That's your cell anatomy. This, again, will not be on your test because I am not your teacher. Don't expect that out of me. Meow.